How is it going, everyone? This is Typhlosion787 here today for a team breakdown. I know you probably see the first four, but today we're only going over the top one because this one right here, I was mainly using it as an argument to why a lot of these Pokemon probably should still be banned in the current Pokebilities metagame, although that is definitely changing with the DLC being out officially as of right now, as I'm recording this video. But yeah, this shit would be kind of broken with all of Moon, Volk, and Hearthflame on a Sun team. And I may go over this team and this team soon, but for now, I'm going to go over this team. I should probably give it a name. Okay, well, that works pretty well. But as you can see, and as the team title that I just put in suggests, this team is specifically about a Fire+Water+Grass core for the main offensive core, and then all of Slowking, Corviknight, and Ting-Lu for some nice, not coverage, but like for some defensive capabilities. Now, I originally wanted to build this team around Hisuian Arcanine. So I was like, okay, what things will be able to resist both Flare Blitz and Head Smash? So I ran through Fire Resist, Fire, Dragon, Water. Let me look it up real quick, just in case I am missing anything. I think I'm missing one thing that resists Fire. Rock, I think. Generation 6 onwards. Okay. Oh wait, how about I just go offensive type coverage calculator, go here. Whereas, there it is. Oh wait, offense. Fire, rock. And as you can see, there's very little that resists both of those. It's like water fighting types, ground rock types, and ground dragon, water ground, ground rock, fighting water, fighting rock. Like, overall, it's not looking pretty. But, as you can see, a lot of the big Pokemon that resist the combination of fire and of fire and rock, not walk, are fighting, dragon, ground, or rock type. Actually, wait, isn't every one of those? I think so. Let me just check again to make sure. Yep, every single one of them has a type that is weak to one of Azumarill stabs, which is the main reason why I chose Azumarill as the next Pokemon, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Stay Hisuian Arcanine. Okay, obviously, the dual stab is extremely nice, but why heavy-duty boots over something like Choice Band or Choice Scarf if I want more speed? And the reason for that is because I already knew that it may be likely my team will not fare the best against hazards by itself, because in Pokebilities, the hazard removal is a bit more limited, I'd say, even compared to the removal in base game, or base OU, I should say, because as you can see, Great Tusk is the only OU spinner. Then you have some fine spinners like Torkoal for Sun teams, the Sand Slashes for Sand and Snow, Treads and Quaquaval, like, they're fine. Quaquaval's a bit better in the meta because it takes advantage of both Torrent and Moxie. but overall they're not the most common. And Tusk, it's still phenomenal as a Pokemon, but it's not too common either. So with hazard removal not being the best, with Defog being as limited as it is, and Goldingo still being phenomenal, that's why I decided to run Boots on it. And I probably should have ran Boots on more Pokemon, but at this point I just decided to keep the team how it is. But if you want to change it, feel free to in your own time. So, obviously, Flare Blitz Head Smash, clear stabs. Extreme Speed for some nice priority, because that is always going to be nice to have on any team. Close Combat for things like if a King Gambit decides to try to switch out, then let's see, what's something I could use as an example that resists it? Something that resists fire but is weak to fighting. Any rock type, basically, but okay. Let's say King Gambit is trying to switch out, and they have an Ogerpon Cornerstone. Boom, smacked with Close Combat. And even if it's not that specifically, Close Combat is still a really strong move. 120 base power, and the fact that it's, like, fighting coverage in general really helps with the rock types that resist Flare Blitz, that have another type that resist Head Smash, like the rock and ground types, and the rock and water types. So that's always going to be nice. But finally, on to the next Pokemon, Azumarill. Like I said earlier, everything that is resistant to both Hisuian Arcanine stabs is hit either super effectively or neutrally by Azumarill, if we don't take abilities into account. But, oh wait, actually, all of these are hit super effectively, even though, or except like the ones that have water absorb, which I still hit neutrally. Okay, so it's an even better partner than I thought it would be offensively. But yeah, Azumarill, just a phenomenal Pokemon all around. One of the best defensive profiles and Pokebilities, just absolutely insane. And the coverage that it provides as a partner for Hisuian Arcanine is amazing as another water type. So, and with its abilities, it turns two times resistances both into 4 times resistances, as well as the fact that Sap Sipper gives it a grass immunity instead of weakness, which is just brilliant, because it takes down another weakness that you would have in your base form and turns it into a free attack boost with no damage. So you basically are only weak to electric and poison, which you have a poison-resistant Hisuian Arcanine and some of the mons we'll get to later down, and you have an electric resist with Rillaboom, which I will get to right after I finish the section on Azumarill, and the Mon at the bottom, which I will get to later as well. So, for Azumarill, I really wanted to keep the versatility in the moveset, so I decided to Salt Vest, but another good option, if you want, would be Ice Spinner with protective pads. And why I'm saying protective pads instead of Punching Glove and Ice Punch is because Punching Gloves does not apply to moves that aren't punching moves, which is understandable. And with that, I really wanted to start having some mons that not only did well with the core of Azumarill and Hisuian Arcanine, but also had options for momentum, which is where Rillaboom comes in. Of course, it's just the basic choice band set. Extremely strong, especially with Adamant Nature instead of Jolly, even though it does make it lose some speed ties. It hits the water ground types that have water absorb, so Azumarill would have to risk a miss with Play Rough. Not the most common thing, but still possible. Rillaboom really checks those, hits a ton of things super hard, provides some nice recovery, 6% every turn for both Hisuian Arcanine and Azumarill, and the grassy terrain pairs really well with Hisuian Arcanine's Steel Terra type. So when it tears into Steel, it has the power of Earthquake, which with Flash Fire on Hisuian Arcanine, it means The most common ground type move has its power halved. You are still immune to fire because flash fire, so you're only really weak to fighting. Other than that, like I said, the nice recovery goes with Hisuian Arcanine. It gives Azumarill some nice recovery, and the Mons later down. I will get to them in just a second, of course, but knockoff, nothing really wants to lose its item, or at least very few Pokemon actually want to lose their items nowadays. Woodhammer, insanely powerful, just stab grass type move, boosted by grassy terrain. Grassy Glide, nice priority to have. U-turn, momentum grabber, just also a nice way to switch out if you don't want to risk immediately. If you don't want to if you don't want to risk something else taking a knockoff and you're slower, you can just take the knockoff with Rillaboom, use U-turn, swap out into something else so it doesn't have to take the knock. And another thing you'll notice, all three of my first Pokemon have some sort of priority. Extreme Speed with Arcanine, Aqua Jet with Azumarill, Grassy Glide with Rillaboom, because priority is really important in the Pokebilities meta, with huge threats like Ursaring with Guts and Quick Feet, Terra Water, Adaptability, Reckless, or Rockhead, Wavecrash, Basculin. There is a lot of really fast, terrifying threats in the meta. So priority is really important to get rid of them. After that, I already had an offensive core planned out, so I wanted to be a bit more defensive with the last few mons. I like making balanced teams or bulky offense teams, so here I decided Galarian Slowking, which on the surface doesn't seem like the most changed thing, because Regenerator is obviously the key thing that makes it worth it so many times, but Curious Medicine doesn't really do anything. In Own Tempo, there's not many Intimidate users, and you don't really use Earthquake with Galarian Slowking. But one thing that I overlooked for the longest time was the Confusion immunity. You cannot be confused, and even if Galarian Slowking is max physical defense, you do not get 2-hit KO'd by offensive Zapdos if it has boots, of course, a Hurricane. So you avoid all Confusion luck, and you do not get 2-code. That is huge for Galarian Slowking, and it just gets even better the more specially defensive you are. And checking them on like that, they can easily switch on Rillaboom, try to status Azumarill, is massive, especially if you have the chance to use it as an ability to set up a future sight and try to get damage on another Pokemon switching in, or if you try to get a Sludge Bomb poison for residual damage over time. But, of course, I just said those first two moves, Clear Stabs and Switch Pressure, which will pair really well with my last mon. Chilly Reception, because, like I said earlier, I wanted more momentum, more ways to get my slower Pokemon in. Even if they can take hits, it's preferable for them not to have to, oftentimes. There's where Galarian Slowking comes in. So, fifth, Corviknight. I really like Rocky Helmet Corviknight, even though I know that Leftovers is better because Roost has less PP. Rocky Helmet is just really nice for like the Great Tusks, the King Gambits, anything that's a physical attacker for the most part. The contact moves are going to be really heavily going against them with the physically defensive set. Terra Dragon, just because it resists both fire and electric, as well as two of the types Dragon is weak to are resisted by Steel, being Fairy and Dragon itself, so you won't want to use those on Corviknight immediately. You can Terra into the Dragon type to bust out of Magnezone's Magnet Pull, for example, and be able to hit it with a Defog before switching out. That's something you can do. Defog for obvious hazard removal, U-turn because momentum, and I know I already said Roost, but yeah, obvious reliable recovery for a Steel Flyer. And finally, Ting-Lu, which at this point I was looking at my defensive core, and I was looking at what flaws it had, because Galarian Slowking, I already had the ground weakness covered by Corviknight and Rillaboom, but the dark and ghost weaknesses were not covered. Corviknight, I had Azumarill if I really needed a fire resistance, and Hisuian Arcanine, even though they're both offensive. One has a 4 times resist with Assault Vest, one has an immunity with Flash Fire. So I figured that I didn't need the fire resistance nearly as much on my last defensive Pokemon, but I did notice that my only electric resist was Rillaboom or Azumarill after it tears into ground type. So I wanted something that could preferably be immune to Thunderbolts, but also set up hazards, and that's where I landed at Ting-Lu. Now, one thing that's pretty clear to notice is that Ting-Lu does not have Earthquake on this set, because I wanted it to be more like a hazard stacking Pokemon that has both Spikes and Stealth Rock. Yes, it takes up some more slots, but Earthquake's power is going to be halved by grassy terrain anyway, which is why I decided just to go Calm, 0 attack IVs to make sure Foul Play hits for as little as possible, along with Confusion. No Earthquake, instead just Ruination, Double Hazards, and Whirlwind. Poison Terror type, because it resists 4 of base Ting-Lu's 6 weaknesses in Bug, Fighting, Fairy, and Grass. So, works really well with Galarian Slowking and Corviknight. Takes moves that they wouldn't be able to for resistances and immunities. And even for the rest of my team, it works really well getting the passive residual damage up so they can come in on already weakened Pokemon and hit hard. Now, I explained the Terror types for the last 2 Pokemon. Why not for the first 4? For Hisuian Arcanine, Steel type, because it's just an amazing defensive type in general, and it pairs really well with Hisuian Arcanine's Flash Fire ability, and with the Intimidate ability, because Steel is already more of a predominantly physically defensive type, because a lot of the types resists are more physical generally. So having Intimidate to pair with that is always really nice. Azumarill having ground type to completely be immune to its old electric weakness and resist its old poison weakness, while only having 1 weakness of its own, because Thick Fat gets rid of the ice weakness and Sap Sipper gets rid of the grass weakness. You're only weak to water, but people won't want to hit your Azumarill with a water move before you've already revealed it to be the Pokemon you're using your Terra on, because you will resist it if you're just base Azumarill. For Rillaboom is the one Pokemon I decided to go for more just offensively based Terra instead of deviating, making it more of a bulky benefit. So just raw power really busts holes that Azumarill and Hisuian Arcanine can take advantage of. Then Galarian Slowking, I just decided flying because it's a ground immunity. Yeah, you do get a Rock's weakness if you do use the Terra, but at the same time, it's the Mon that I'd probably use it on least out of the entire team. So here is the team as a whole. And if you want to know EV spreads, I mostly just went max, didn't try to hit any specific benchmarks. If there is one thing I'd suggest, it would be probably making Rillaboom Jolly instead of Adamant. I like Adamant for the power, but Jolly can do things like outspeed Breloom, or outspeed max speed Breloom. It can speed tie with Hisuian Samurott. So Jolly definitely has its benefits, even if I want Adamant for the power. For Azumarill, it's the one thing that has a more odd, It's the one thing that has a more odd EV spread. Basically, I just put 84 in its speed to outspeed a min speed Clefable, and by proxy, anything that has base 60 speed but no investment, dumped max into attack and then the rest into HP, make it as bulky as I can while maintaining the strength and making sure it can outspeed some mons. And Hisuian Arcanine, obviously just max again. Decided to go with Jolly to be able to outspeed Pokemon like Jolly Rillaboom or Hisuian Samurott. Not Arcanine, this is Hisuian Arcanine. But any of the base 85s, the base 80s, anything below Hisuian Arcanine would be able to outspeed. And that is why I have the EV spread as it is. So there's team explanation, the breakdown. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any criticisms on how I can make the team work better, keep in mind this is the Pokebilities format, not just base OU. Feel free to comment. Of course, this is a DLC1 and not DLC2 meta, so things are going to switch up, but yeah.